The seventh task we have under the people domain is to address and remove impediments, obstacles, and blockers for the team. Effective project managers must demonstrate the ability to identify, prioritize, and resolve challenges that might slow down the team progress. The PMP exam will evaluate your competency addressing the impediments through scenario based questions. And to cover the first key enabler here is to determine the critical impediments, or obstacles, and blockers for the team. The exam scenarios here may present situations where a team progress is disrupted due technical or organizational or interpersonal challenges. You should identify the root cause using the tools like the cause and effect diagrams or stakeholder analysis. And for example, here, let's say that a question might involve pinpointing whether a blocker stem from resource shortages or miscommunication or the external dependencies. The next key enabler we have under the seventh task is to prioritize critical impediments, obstacles, and blockers for the team. And the situational questions at the PMP exam often involve multiple impediments that requires a prioritization techniques. So you have to use one of these techniques like the impact analysis or the Moscow framework, which is the must have, should have, could have, won't have, to determine which issues demand immediate attention. Remember, the correct responses will focus on prioritizing the high impact blockers that directly affect the project deliverables or timelines. The third key enabler here is to use the network to implement solution and to remove the impediment. The exam here may test your ability to leverage relationships, organizational influence, and stakeholder network to resolve the issues. For instance, might escalate an issue to senior management, or maybe negotiate resource allocation, or collaborate with external vendors to eliminate the obstacle. Your answers here should emphasize using influence and communication to achieve the solution effectively. The fourth and the last key enabler here we have under this task is to reassess continually to ensure the impediments, obstacles, and blockers for the team are being addressed. In iterative project scenarios, challenges evolve. Questions may focus here on how you maintain ongoing process for identifying and resolving impediments, such as through regular team retrospective or daily stand-up or continuous improvement practices. The correct answers here to these situational questions will demonstrate the adaptability, commitment to iterative problem solving. Here is our final exam tip on this task. We talked about when tackling questions which addresses impediments. Always consider the broader context, such as the project goals, the team dynamics, stakeholder impact. Answers should highlight the proactive identification, collaborative resolution, and continuous monitoring to maintain the team efficiency and project momentum. The eighth task we have under the people domain is to negotiate project agreements. Negotiation is a critical skill for project managers, as they often requires date agreements with the stakeholders or vendors, team members. The PMP exam here will evaluate your ability to analyze and prioritize and execute a negotiation strategies to achieve the project objectives while maintaining alignment with final goals. First key enabler here we have is to analyze the bonds of negotiation for agreement. And here is the exam questions may present scenarios where you need to determine the scope and constraints of negotiation. And this include understanding the contractual, financial, or resource boundaries. The correct answers here will emphasize through the preparation by gathering relevant information, identifying stakeholders' interests, and recognizing the organizational policies or legal constraints. The next key enabler we have here is to assess the priorities and determine ultimate objective. You may encounter questions requiring you to balance competing priorities, such as the cost, the timeline, or the quality. So the effective responses here will prioritize objectives based on their impact on the project success. For instance, ensuring timely delivery might take, let's say, precedence over achieving minor cost saving in critical project phase. Third key enabler here we have is to verify the objectives of the project agreement is met. PMP exam will have some scenarios that may test your ability to ensure negotiated agreements meet the agreed upon objectives. And this includes confirming the deliverables, timelines, and the budget, and align it with the project scope and organizational goals. The correct answers to such questions often involve monitoring the compliance through performance reviews or contract audits. Next, we have participate in agreement negotiation as a project manager. So the questions here in the PMP exam might evaluate how you engage in negotiations, including effective communication, active listening, and conflict resolution. The correct responses to such questions should demonstrate the ability to facilitate discussions, manage differing viewpoints, and drive consensus while maintaining the professionalism and trust. The last key enabler we have at this task is the to determine the negotiation strategy. You may here face some situational questions requiring the selection of an appropriate negotiation strategy, such as collaborative, which is win to win case, competitive, which is win to lose, or compromises approaches. Your answers should align the chosen strategy with the project priorities, stakeholder relationships, and long term organizational goals. The final exam tip here we have on negotiating project agreements, as it's the eighth task under the full domain. We say that PMP exam scenarios and negotiation often require balancing the technical project constraints with the interpersonal dynamics. Focus on strategies that achieve the project goals while fostering stakeholder trust and alignment. You may utilize the PMI recommended techniques such as the interest based negotiation to arrive at mutually beneficial outcomes. The ninth task we have under the people domain is to collaborate with the stakeholders. Stakeholder collaboration is essential for project success, as it ensures the alignment between stakeholder needs, expectation, and project objectives. And here, the PMP exam will evaluate your ability to identify the engagement needs, to optimize the alignment, and build trust to foster the stakeholder collaboration effectively. We have three key enablers here, and to start with, we have evaluate the engagement that is needed for the stakeholders. And the exam questions here may test your ability to assess a stakeholder engagement level and requirement. This involves identifying who needs to be informed or consulted or actively involved at different project stage. Remember, the correct responses will emphasize the use of tools like the stakeholder engagement matrix, the communication plans, which, if you recall, when we have set it and we have talked about it at the planning phase. We talked about it at the execution phase, the communication plans, the engagement plans, or influence mapping as tools to ensure an appropriate levels of engagement. Next key enabler we have under collaborating with the stakeholders is to evaluate or to optimize the alignment between the stakeholder needs, expectation, and project objectives. Scenarios may require you to address conflicts between stakeholders' expectation and project goals. The PMP exam will evaluate your ability to bridge these gaps by aligning the stakeholder inputs with the project deliverables. Correct answers will often include strategies such as frequent status update, facilitated discussions, or iterative feedback mechanism to maintain alignment dynamically. The final key enabler we have here is to build trust and influence the stakeholders to accomplish project objectives. The PMP exam often features, let's say, situational questions that again will test your ability to foster the trust and influence the stakeholders toward achieving the project goals. Effective responses will include demonstrating the transparency, fulfilling the commitments, and actively addressing concerns. For example, maybe you need to use your emotional intelligence to understand the stakeholder perspective or employing interest-based negotiation to find mutually beneficial solution are the key PMI recommended strategies. To summarize, by having exam, the final exam tip here for collaboration with the stakeholders or collaborate with the stakeholders. We say that PMP exam scenarios, stakeholder collaboration requires balancing technical project management tasks with the interpersonal skills. Focus on applying tools like the stakeholder analysis, an engagement plan, and communication plans to maintain the alignment and ensure an effective communication. Leverage the PMI best practices such as building trust through constant delivery and fostering a shared sense of purpose among the stakeholders.